around saying, there's a massive problem of unemployment in 2001. Leeds actually was characterized as a booming city at that time. So I don't think it is simply economics. What I think is the broader kind of social issue around rioting is degrees of alienation. And people obviously can be alienated economically, but they're often alienated socially and politically. So if you have people who feel themselves to be a social pariah, if they feel themselves to be outside the normal political process, and if they feel themselves to be just bitterly disgruntled about some particular thing, whether it's race, Nazis with a racist agenda, police who in general have improved their policing of ethnic minorities but still make horrendous mistakes, a lone act of violence against an innocent black person or something like this. In those situations of grievance and discontent and alienation, yes, riots will take place. It might be that in this current economic situation, you get a slightly different kind of riot, i.e. different from the inner city riots that we've had in Leeds in 1975, in 1981, and in 2001. If you had a situation in which the trade unions, the students, the well-organized communities all said to this current government, we are not going to accept paying the price of an economic crisis that your class has created internationally. If that feeling grew, and there were massive demonstrations, there will always be on the edge of demonstrations those who, with political motives, who will look for some kind of violence because they want to express the huge anger they feel, as when the students attacked the Conservative Party headquarters a month or so ago. It's always a fringe, but they do speak for a real gut feeling of protest. In those situations, who knows what alienated young Muslims, alienated young Caribbeans, alienated young whites might say and do in the inner city. They might latch on to those more political kind of demonstrations. It's very hard to say. I'm a sociologist. There are sociologists who think it's a science. It's not a science. It's inspired guesswork most of the time, and that's what I do. I would say, though, about the Al-Qaeda phenomenon and the support that is there in Britain among some young Muslims, some of whom are converting, remember, from Christianity or from atheism, and some of them are black, and some of them are African origin, and some of them are ethnically white. So it's well worth thinking about the growth of the jihadi tendency within Islam as a product of the kinds of general alienation that I was talking about, not particularly economic alienation, but a sense that there's something deeply wrong with Western society. There's something deeply, in their language, deeply corrupt, deeply amoral, deeply unjust, and deeply hostile to their religion, manifested by massive wars which the richest and most powerful nations in the world have waged against Muslims. So I can see very easily how that sense of alienation has been developed in and among some of those jihadi supporters in Britain. And I think, in many ways that's a much more serious issue than just the occasional riot in Hare Hills or Chapeltown, because that is talking, as I'm trying to lead towards, to a sense of a deep social, cultural, religious, political, and in some cases, but not always, economic alienation that Western capitalism develops. I feel alienated from it, and I'm among its most privileged. It doesn't suit me, this kind of society. It isn't how we should be living. and if people as privileged as me can feel alienated, goodness knows how people who've had far less easy ride than I have must feel.